I uploaded a trailer, and it was literally 6 to 8 pages of notes, and it didn't make it more than 15 minutes. And it was at that point, a couple of months before we were going to kick off, that I decided that I was never going to do this solo podcasting thing again. And thank goodness, because the meeting people and talking to people has been immensely beneficial.
Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by DeechWorks Fuel Systems. Visit DeechWorks.com for all your fuel system needs.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast. I have commandeered it. My name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Con, I guess the traditional host of
Yeah.
this podcast.
I figured I'd invite you onto your own podcast because we're celebrating.
Yes, it's episode 99. That would be my car number, so it's my episode. But, well, they're probably all my episodes, but maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows?
Oh, I've got questions. Don't you worry. We've got plenty to go through. So we've got 3 main segments scheduled for this this festivity of episode 99.
Segments.
That's right. You know,
Oh, he's making us a little formal. Okay.
that's right. We you know, when you said, "Hey, would you do this?" and I said, "Yes, I will." I had to come up with some stuff. So, we've got some stuff just on the podcast. We've got some stuff just on your driving. And for a little aperitif, a little dessert, we have a few listener questions that I solicited, which will be endlessly fun.
Okay.
Very well. All right, podcast time. You did this. You started it a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think I caught your first episode I caught live was episode 3. Because
Okay.
with podcasts, you never know when something new comes out. So you just kind of do a search every now and then. And you were on episode 3. So I quickly caught up and I enjoyed it. And it's kind of similar to ours in that the goal is to either get people out there racing or get people racing to be better. So we're kind of aligned, kindred spirits. But I guess we should go back for the people because maybe everybody hasn't listened to all 98 episodes, which is now 99. Why did you start the podcast? Because that's what we thought you were doing. But why did Con start his podcast?
Well, it's all selfish. It's all selfish learning for me. Literally every episode is some reason for me to learn something and to become a better driver. But I blame our friend Ross Bentley for this because he sort of was sunsetting Speed Secrets, which I was constantly listening to try to improve myself as a driver. And it seemed like there was a hole. And also, while listening to Speed Secrets, when he would interview people or I'd listen to other podcasts, I always had questions of my own. So I thought, why not give this a whirl? So I did.
So were you initially thinking it was going to be your insights onto the world of racing, or did you always anticipate having guests on, or how did you envision it to begin with?
Initially, the plan was to do 50-50, like half solo, half interviews. As we were talking before, I'm not sure how Jaime at Race FF does it. I can't do a solo podcast. I'm 6 to 8 pages in notes will last me 15 minutes. So I need engagement and interaction. I don't know how he does his 45-minute plus solo podcast.
Well, he blows at least 5 minutes trying to find his information and his lead-in sounding. So, there's that.
Well, yeah. But once if you don't know, if you've never started a podcast, you have to have one in queue to upload so that your host can then test all of the other places like Apple and Spotify and now YouTube podcast and all that stuff. So I uploaded a trailer and it was literally 6 to 8 pages of notes, and it didn't make it more than 15 minutes. And it was at that point, a couple of months before we were going to kick off, that I decided I was never going to do this solo podcasting thing again. And thank goodness, because the meeting people and talking to people has been immensely beneficial. So,
Mm-hmm. I think so.
but
So your goals going in, you wanted to do, I think you said you committed to 100, I think, or you had 100 list of 100 episodes or topics.
yeah, so I decided to put together 2 years of content at one topic a week, turned into 104 topics. I've roughly covered 40% of the topics, and we're almost 2 years in. There's lots of new topics that come up. So, and I try to have visitors and guests because I'm not an expert at anything. So it's hard to find an expert for some of this stuff. So
yeah, it is. It is. I think, peeking behind the curtain, because a lot of people that listen, it's easily said that a lot of people who listen don't have a podcast, but it's also easily said that a lot of people listen probably do have a podcast, because it seems like everybody has a podcast right now. But what was harder than you anticipated about this podcasting thing?
Staying organized to my wife and I have a joint calendar, and it is a hot mess since the podcast. And then I decided to help coach baseball for my nephew. So now it's even more slam packed with stuff. I just stay busy. When I go into the office, I'm commuting 13 to 15 hours a day. Sometimes I come home and still have a podcast to do, which is fine, whatever. But it doesn't leave a lot of time for other things, but somehow I keep finding time for other things. So
was anything easier than you thought it was going to be?
The learning curve on editing. Now I'm sure the listeners have their concerns with how I clean up audio or don't clean up audio. But yeah, the learning the software side was actually pretty easy.
Yeah, I gave up editing for Lent. I used to do, each hour of podcast was 2 hours of editing, and it just that was one thing I had to give away. So it's okay. So here's one thing. You started a podcast. It's going quite well. What's one or a few unexpected upsides to doing this podcast thing that when pre-podcast Con was thinking about this, he didn't envision and has come to be a pleasant surprise?
The support from the rest of the podcast community. There's one podcaster that isn't very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, open arms. And it's made me think about some things, do some things better. Maybe not that on the production side, but on the organization side. And I've been able to meet some really great people, to include yourself, and your wife and the rest of the Garage Heroes in Training team. But also other guests, right? Like Mario, AJ Hartman, Tom O'Gorman, Ross Bentley. Yeah. Ross Bentley episodes in my format and my podcast do not do very well, which is surprising considering he's like the he's one of the 3 hosts of the number 1 podcast in our genre, but it doesn't really matter to me because I'm learning. And that's kind of what, yes, you said that the podcast is doing well and it's doing better than I thought it was going to do. But at the same time, it's still a selfish endeavor for me. I want to learn myself. If you happen to listen and learn, good for you. If not, sorry, I guess.
Well, I mean, again, behind the curtains of podcasting, you can have a podcast that's light and airy and fun, or you can have a podcast that's learning, or you can have a blend of those two. And I think we both try and have a blend because, we don't want to be a college lecture on setting camber. We try and make it a little bit of fun, but if you're going to improve, the improvements are small and the improvements are incremental and the improvements are continuous. And sometimes, at least our podcast, and I think your podcast, because I've listened to yours a few times each, we try to keep them evergreen so you can come back to them and you hear the right thing at the right time, because sometimes you're not ready to hear what we're talking about.
Yeah. And the episode that's going to come out right before this one, it's about Droop, Helper Springs, and Bump Stops, and it's with Jackie Andrews, and it's something I should have covered with her in earlier episodes. So sometimes you're like, oh, maybe I should have asked these questions. Well, you get enough of those questions, I start thinking of the next podcast, right? So
yeah, for sure.
We can't hit it every time, but I do want it to be fun. I do want it to be lively. It's entertainment, but also education at the same time. At least I try. Now, they don't always turn out that way. Like you're not going to get water from the stone, right? So it depends on how people interact together. I don't always interact well with people. My fault, their fault. We don't have that rapport, that mesh yet. And it can be hard to get a good episode out of it, though.
Yeah. So again, how many podcast topics do you have in your mind that you haven't pulled the trigger on because you don't think you're advanced enough to ask the decent questions for the topic? Because I know I've got like 15 of them that I'm sitting there going, I really want to do an episode on this, and I know who I want to have, but I'm not smart enough to ask the decent questions. So I'd be sitting there going, so tell me about, and then just shut up for the other hour. It's
okay. So hot take. Those are the best performing episodes is when I ask a question and be quiet for 20 minutes.
Maybe we should take the hint then, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I probably should take the hint. But yes, I easily have a dozen episodes between not having enough background in the topic to also not having a point of contact for an expert in that topic. And all it does is force me to get better at it. And then there's other times, I mean, thermodynamics. Well, I've never taken those classes. But I hit up my buddy Mark and was like, hey, you want to talk about it? Because I know you're into motorcycles and cars and stuff, and I know you can put the spin on it. And he did, but I was way over my head for that. So
yeah, I had a very good time when you started talking about carbon and silicon carbide, because that's what I do. And I'm sitting there going, okay, we got some questions, but it's okay. They were good. It was a good one.
I had no questions on that, by the way.
If you want to do a part 2, let me play. I want to play.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you have any episodes that you recorded and didn't publish by choice?
Yes. Yeah, I have one that I didn't publish by choice, and then I had one live one that I still want to redo with the people that I did. We did it live in the paddock, and it was loud.
It just couldn't get the audio.
Oh, and a storm came through in the middle of the podcast. And it was, I even paid somebody on Fiverr to try to rescue what they could, and it still wasn't usable. So,
yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, our first ever interview with Randy Popst, we were talking at a Lucky Dog race, and right in the middle of the podcast, it starts getting excited, and Randy gets excited, and we find out, 40 minutes into the podcast that we had disconnected the microphone. Tell me, I was feeling great that day.
Yeah, so I have a Zoom P4 podcaster doohickey setup that I take live with me. And it's got a 50-50 chance of going corrupt in the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. So I often have to restart my live ones, and it gets frustrating. So I need to find another solution for that. Any audio nerds out there, let me know.
I might be able to help you there. It's okay.
Okay.
All right. So defend yourself, sir. I have feelings on this question.
Okay.
There are people who say you're not an expert. You're not a professional driver. Why should I listen to your podcast?
Well, because the person accusing me of being not a professional race car driver is also not a professional race car driver. And I'm just trying to represent the people with the experts. That's what this podcast is about. I'm just your average weekend warrior trying to figure things out.
Well, I don't think either one of us profess to be the greatest driver in the world, and
well, no,
as equally likely, the greatest driver in the world, pick a name, let's say Max Verhamilton,
right,
is not listening to our podcast, but that's not the point. The point is to take you from wherever you are and hopefully make you a better driver. And through some stuff that we know, some stuff that we've done, you can learn from our mistakes, or some stuff that our guests know, hopefully take you from step C to step D, or from step L to step M, or from step Y to Z. I don't know if we ever get to Z, but you know what I mean.
Right. And that's the whole point of this, is to make sure that there's some level of learning for everyone. Now, not every podcast is the higher you go, the more educated you are as a racer. Not every podcast is going to have the right kind of information for you. But at the same time, it's something that you could share with somebody else that needs it, right? And then, but most of the time, I get good feedback from drivers that I think don't need to listen to a topic. They're telling me that, oh, I learned something from this, So I try not to go too long, but there's some hour and a half ones. There's a 2.5 hour one. There's a 2 hour one that I split in half. Sometimes we get long winded. I can't say that. I'm not even a good podcaster, to be honest. Like, I say all the time and those types of things. So I'm about as good as a podcaster as I am a racer.
Well, I mean, in the end, we're doing this for fun. In the end, we're doing this for essentially negative free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's free to our listeners, hopefully. And I wish it was free to us, but it is not. And, it's just part of the fun. And, everything's a journey, and we're always trying to get better. And there's always different stages that you're at, and there's always different things. And to be fair, a driver who's mature enough and skilled enough to be a top driver, and maybe at like level X or Y or whatever towards the end, they may have something foundational that they're not quite perfect at. And that's where, we know how to screw things up that are easy, and we cover them. That's what we do.
For sure.
So, hard question for you, sir.
Okay.
Would you be a better driver right now if you had not started this podcast?
No.
Why?
Because I do learn from every episode. I learned something. Now, carbon ceramic brakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm not allowed to have them. I get it. But I learned concepts. I learned braking strategy that was mentioned a little bit in there. And in a different viewpoint from him on brakes, because of how you use carbon ceramic brakes versus the traditional steel and had set up
Mhm.
that I'm going to attempt to apply, because I'll readily admit that braking is my biggest weakness.
Well, you've had some trial by fire too recently.
Yeah, I mean, I have, yes, but at the same time, it's still a weak area for me. So,
Yeah.
um, it's something I know is my weakness, and I need to keep working on it. You know, if you want to line me up, like I lined people up for nationals a couple of years ago, and go, what's his weakness? Number one, braking. You could put that up there. No, I'm working on it, but it's still my weakness, and I'm okay to admit it, because I'll get you somewhere else.
Well, to be fair, most people at our level, plus or minus, but always have the same answer as braking. So that's fine. Seems to be.
Yeah, there's other flaws that drivers at our level can have that will stand out and
Mhm.
makes passing them certain ways easier. Or in a 40-minute race, you guys race longer, but in a 40-minute race that you'll make come out, and then you just have to be ready to take advantage of it. So
Yeah, indeed. All right. So I was going to ask, what was your top podcast moment so far? But that's not fair. So realizing that, the current state of your mind, what would be like the Mount Rushmore or the few that come to mind at this particular point? This isn't, everything else wasn't great. It was just what comes to mind right now, because you have no preparation for this episode. So I didn't let you have
yeah.
any.
Yeah, he really didn't let me have any preparation, which is not how I normally set up podcasts, but whatever.
Hey,
Um,
it's,
I think where I am is good. Um, where the podcast is good per se. I personally would like to see genre move our level, the amateur level, move into a more listened to, a more participated in podcast, and therefore also on track, right?
Mhm.
The Formula One podcasts, those are under sports, NASCAR under sports, generally speaking. Our numbers and their numbers will never be the same.
I
Never.
don't think so. No.
But I'd love to try to compete. Like I think I'm going to change. I think I have my podcast listed under leisure.
Yep.
Something else.
Leisure and then automotive is usually what we have.
That's what we have. I have it under sports for Spotify because they don't have an automotive over there.
True.
Um, I'll never rank, but I'd love to rank in the top 500 in sports.
Yeah, that's hard because you got ESPN and everybody.
Oh, yeah. Pat McAfee, all the football, all the baseball, all the basketball, Formula One, NASCAR. You have the NASCAR, just Dale Jr.'s Dirty Mo Media has like 8 podcasts. So you have to beat the media machines.
Right. The Ringer's got 20, maybe more. So yeah, there's tons of them.
But I mean, look, we're in Apple Automotive, and we're still competing against the 3 Donut Media podcasts and some of the other conglomerates, some of the corporate pushed podcasts. So
yeah,
Garage Heroes in Training, for those people who don't know, and Blind Apex podcasts, pretty close on the charts. We ended that way last year, and we both moved up the charts pretty decently. So
yeah, it's hard because you got within automotive, you've got the car review podcast, you've got the racing review podcast of the professional racing series, you have the car fixing podcast, you've got the car, I don't know how to say it, the car leisure collecting.
yeah,
we're in
Bring a
niche of a
Trailer
niche of a
has-
niche. Yeah.
Yes. Bring a Trailer has a podcast. There's Overland podcast. There's all sorts of things in the automotive space. Paul Jr., the Orange County Choppers, Paul Jr. has a podcast. Like, trying to compete with those folks is a little crazy. So
Yeah. Especially with our big names that we bring to the podcasting field. So it's
world famous.
exactly just a very small world. So, what's your biggest aha you got from the podcast? What's the thing that you learned for your racing, or the big few things that you learned from your racing in the first 98 episodes?
The wind tunnel is not that expensive of a place to go visit. That's number one. My car's aero limited. We don't have a lot of rules. Excuse me. But it was a great place to learn. So that was number one. The next one is our community is pretty awesome. We are a niche inside of a niche, and every paddock is a family with sub families, but everybody's really big on helping, participating. I mean, just the support I get for my podcast from my Honda Challenge paddock area is amazing, and I appreciate them for that. But my paddock, my NASA Mid Atlantic paddock, is big on it too. So, it, I felt the love, and I think that was a big thing for me. And then the details of the suspension life, doesn't matter front wheel drive or otherwise. The details that you need to really pay attention to make the biggest differences in how your car is actually set up.
So, having a little bit of a flashback to one of our favorite podcast guests mutually, Mr. Ross Bentley. So it's not the car.
So I believe he named that podcast specifically for me. I was going to have an episode where a bunch of us sat around and talked about all the greatest racer excuses, and I had to quit when I filled up a legal pad, like went straight down the legal pad. I got an excuse for everything. And generally me or I or driver, that never came up. So,
Nope. See, we have the assumption that it's always us and it's not the car.
Right.
Because, that's just how we came into the sport. And we never realized that, if I adjust the car, this might not be as hard as we're making it look. So that's okay.
Yeah, I always like to blame the car, but I know that the amount of preparation that I do and the amount of research that I've done, which has been amplified by the podcast, really, it is my fault for some reason. It could be me in preparation. It could be me in being completely wrong and on my philosophy on how to tune the suspension or how to turn the knobs on the shocks correctly. It's still me. The car suffers from me. The car is nothing without the person working on it, right? So
right.
If I get to blame the car, I get to blame the crew chief, which happens to be me, even though I say it's my wife all the time. But
well, you better not blame your wife. I mean,
I can't.
We've gone over that. That's the bad plan.
Right. She's the one that tells me to go outside and work on it. Right. Like she's like, hey, it's off season, 60 days until you race again. You haven't touched the car. You better get out there.
Exactly.
She's a motivator.
Yes. You and I both have outkicked our coverage vastly in that area, sir.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So 2 more for the podcast area. Things that would not have happened to you without the podcast.
Let's see.
Obviously, the wind tunnel. We keep...
Yeah, obviously the wind tunnel. I probably would never have driven a motion sim. I don't know if that episode won't be out yet, but I drove in a motion sim at Sim Seats. Spoiler alert.
Very nice.
Without G-forces, the motion kind of made me sick, but in a car, I don't get sick. That's weird. Like you said, the wind tunnel, who knew? Everybody should do it. If you're serious about your car and you're serious about where it is and figuring out what's wrong with it or how to truly optimize it, make the trip. Call AJ. He'll get the band together. and like go, right?
Yeah.
And I have an excuse to like go to PRI, which I don't know if I'm going to make it this year or not, but I want to. And just meet industry folks.
I will be going unless something weird happens. So,
Are you driving out?
yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, it's an 8-hour drive for me, which isn't the end of the world, right? But
Well, we can meet somewhere in between, and I will drive for you.
yeah, I think I said we weren't going, and we filled our calendar with something else, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, it comes every year.
Yep.
So, all right. Last pod related
Mhm.
question until I come up with another one. You never know.
Okay.
Podcasts,
know.
as we both know, meander and have a life of their own. What's one thing that you'd like to have changed or added by your listeners that would help you or the pod?
Changed by my listeners?
What could they do, or what or you'd prefer that they? I have a very simple reason for asking the question. I don't think people realize how important interaction and how much we really want their questions or comments.
Well, I get a lot of interaction personally in the DMs.
Mhm. Same.
But I try to give back to the community as much as possible.
Mhm.
And sometimes, not this last one, but sometimes the giveaways fall flat. So
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
media interaction is and word of mouth is the only way this podcast and any podcast grows. I mean,
Mhm.
the return on investment for actually paying to have your podcast advertised anywhere is pretty low.
Right.
So really sharing the podcast is all I can ever ask for, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think the way that I always look at it is, if you have a question that we didn't ask or have a question that you didn't ask, let us know. If you have a topic that you're like, hey, this would really help me, I'm stumped, or I'd really like to hear a little bit more, just let us know. And we have no issues. And especially when we get something wrong or skip it,
All right.
we really want to know. And it's not
Yeah.
like, you're not beating us up. It's just, it's tough to talk, listen, ask questions, keep everything shepherd. Make sure we're still recording, because I just had this panic moment that the recording button went away on the top, but we're still good.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, you were a listener, and you recommended, you were like, hey, you should interview Mario.
Mhm.
And I was like, about what? Because I didn't know about Occam's Racers.
Yep.
And then Mario has a brother. And then Mario emails me and goes, hey, you should interview
Ian.
Ramey. Like,
Oh, yeah. Ramey. Yeah.
so the network is great. And the people that I've met through it have been amazing. And they listen too now, most of them. So
It's quite
Good.
fun. And, we I think we should probably both have it on our podcast is, we're not going to be 100% right, but we're trying. And we'd really like to know where we're not and where we could be better and who we should talk to. Love it. I love having honorary podcast producers like, hey, you should interview. Okay.
yes, sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah, anything that's wrong, I try to do a post about and at least caveat in the show notes. So if you're like that idiot, because I'm sure that's been uttered at least weekly for the last 90 something episodes. Check the show notes because I may have caveated it already. But
Yep. There's no rewind while we're recording. But anyway. All right, so let's go to driving. Where were you when you started the podcast, and how have you progressed?
Um, where was I? That's a great question. I was in between cars. So I started the podcast, the idea of the podcast, maybe not the actual podcast, but started the idea of the podcast while I was in between cars. One car was being built and the other one was getting cut in half right about the same time. I decided to go down this rabbit hole of an adventure, and in the old car, I had finally, the last event where we knew it was actually dead, I had gone from perennial last place to second to last place to somewhere qualifying about fifth normally,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big deal in my region, in my opinion. But
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's other people who are like, fifth is nothing. I get it, but
But there's a billion people who aren't on track, so you're already way ahead of them. So
true. But so I had just literally that weekend made the stride. There's a picture of me. I think I finished fourth on the Saturday race, and I have an adult beverage in my hand. We're all going to hang out for the awards ceremony, and I'm not even getting one. And I've got a smile like past my ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys I raced with, he's like, I don't think I've ever seen you smile like that before. And I said, basically, all the hard work that I've been doing finally has started to look like it was paying off. And then the next day, the car popped another axle in the transmission, and it was really bad. It was basically in a straight line. So there was no turning, no nothing going on. So whatever the problem was, it had gotten worse. And I'd bagged it for the weekend and had to make plans. So literally the highest point of my young racing career, because I've only been doing it for like 5 or 6 years, year two, in the height of my best finish, I now got my bubble burst. So,
and how have we progressed since then through the podcast? Where are we at now?
well, the trick is, pretty sure most of the people that I race with listen in some capacity. So they're learning as much as I am, which is fine. I'm okay with that. Because I need to learn it somehow. So I'm still in the fourth, fifth. I have a couple of thirds under my belt.
But all those boats have risen.
Every boat rose. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's okay. I love the competition. And to be honest, there are guys who were like me, the perennial last place, second to last place, fighting for second to last place, whatever you guys want to call it. And their speed level has increased so much. Now, I'm not saying it's the podcast. Who knows if they are listening or not, but they're working on their race program. My region, our programs are pretty formal for the most part. Some people don't need a checklist. Some people say they don't use a checklist, but then when you watch them, you paddock next to them, they do the same thing every single time they go out in the same exact order. So no, they don't have a piece of paper, but they're running through one in their head, whether they realize it or not. And they're formalizing things, and they're pondering things like tire temperatures and tire pressures and making adjustments and looking at the weather. And I'm sure they weren't doing that before. So yeah, we're all getting faster together. And that means make one slip up, and the fight from eighth to back to fourth is going to be hard, you know?
So if you were to say 1 to 10 between just starting and where you want to end up on a scale of 1 to 10, where were you when you started the podcast and where are you now?
I was probably at a 4 out of 10 when I started this gig. And I'm probably at like a 7.5 right now.
All right. Those last couple are always really hard.
Yeah, they're pretty hard.
It's not linear.
No, no. It's definitely a curve and it gets steeper. Uh, a lot of it has to do with personal discipline. I lack a lot of personal discipline to reach some of those last items that I think I need to really push myself over the top. And that's that's going to be a challenge for me. So,
Okay. All right. So I like the way you answered the question before. So let's do it again for the driving instead of podcast. What was harder than you anticipated? What was easier? And what were some unexpected upsides you thought as your driving has grown?
the hardest part for me is was the early development of the new car. It's a McPherson Strut car, and getting it to turn. Oh man, it was demoralizing.
It was a conversation, not an order.
Yeah. I was demoralized. I really wanted to get in this new car and just be fast, and it was not that way. Whatever the internet says isn't right for my car and my driving style, so I don't do it.
So wait, the internet is not 100% correct?
Yeah, see that it should be, isn't it? It can't. It has to be true if it's on the internet, right? Like
that's what apparently some people think.
Say.
But Mama said, yeah.
But go ahead.
Anything that seemed to be easier than you thought? Like you're going in thinking, oh, this is going to be a long time, or this is going to be really hard. Anything that came out to be like that wasn't so bad?
Easier,
not easy.
Easier.
Like you thought it was a 10 and it turned into a 6. That would be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Somehow I've gotten really good and really fast with the new chassis at removing the engine and transmission.
That's unfortunate, but I understand.
It's there. It's actually not unfortunate because you understand where everything is in the car. You'll learn where all the wiring is going. You'll understand and learn how to refine the process or modify the car to make your process better. And when you get to do it in the comfort of your own garage, the only thing you have to worry about and the only thing you have to think about is if I were doing something like this trackside, could I do something to make this easier? Maybe there's a bracket in there that doesn't need to be there. It's hard to reach, it's hard to unbolt or whatever. Okay, remove it. Because if you have to mess with it trackside, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to have the time to do it. Even if it's a Saturday night, if you save 15 minutes, that's 15 minutes more sleep, and it's important. And so really refining, in my case, the front end of my car, because the whole front end is it's very cramped. So figuring out how to make it easy to work on has really helped me. And it's been an easy project to learn and do.
So what's holding your car back right now? Like what's 2 or 3 things that you need to get that next increment of con performance? Could be you too.
Yeah. Well, so number 1 is me, right? Yep. There's some people who are not going to want to hear this, but number 1 is me. And then the rest of it is, I don't personally feel that my rules are in balance of power, but
relative to H2.
Yeah. Honda Challenge H2. I know that the B16 is probably not a useful engine anymore. Chris probably has the data to back that up. But I believe every motor has been touched in my rule book except for mine. Now, this off season, things may change, but I didn't put any requests in. So
Right.
my rules committee folks usually hear from me annually, and I've decided not to put anything in. So
Are there more 8th gens coming in to the series? I would expect that, but I don't know for sure.
we already have a bunch. So Sam, Ash, Pete, Brian has a 9th gen. I feel like there's more. There's 4, 5, 6 of us running around in these cars.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So driving, what would you say your strengths are? What are you good at relative to your competition?
I am obnoxiously consistent. So lap after lap after lap after lap.
To a fault, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Because and this will be so the other thing is I come out of the gate very fast. So that's good, but I still have, let's say, 1 second, because it's a roundish thing, right? I come out lap 1 and I'm within plus or minus half a second. So I'm 1 second total float time, right? Doesn't matter what my tires are, doesn't matter what traffic looks like. My lap time's in there. It's actually smaller, but it's rounder. It's easier to do that. I have the data, and I'm a data nerd. I know.
We know.
But I come out of the gate fast, which upsets a lot of folks. But it doesn't matter whether my tires are burning off the car or cold. I can get the car to do this lap time. The problem is that 1 second float zone is still 1 second slower than I need to be right up front, usually.
So does that decay as the race goes on, or is it relatively constant?
They will eventually decay, but there's on a very slow curve down where I'm very consistent, but it's always under. And we at the end, sometimes we start to meet, our times will start to meet, but it's still, there's a variable there.
So
I can't catch them.
Was that a driver issue, a setup issue, or tire deg issue, or TBD?
Oh, it's a driver issue. I often miss the window for the best lap times with my tires because it's not in my brain. I don't think about it. I'm not like, this is my window to push hard. I've set the car up to where I believe and where the data is, because another one of my competitors drove my car, and the data, the times showed consistent all the way through. Lap 15, he put down his fastest lap of the race, 15 laps into a sprint race. You know, your fastest lap should be lap 3, 4 or so.
Or sooner. Yeah, depends.
And then slowly taper off, right? So the car's set up to go for the long haul. It's the driver that needs to buckle down a little bit.
So for fear of stealing some thunder from our traditional goals review and forecasting episode that you have been adopted into, what are you going to do to change it, sir?
Well, it's hard because I'm blaming the car a lot this off season. When I know it's me, I was able to get a practice day in every month. That was one of my goals for this year.
Yeah.
And it only towards the middle of the year did it become more disciplined and less of a test. So instead of testing the car to make sure it's running and not broken, right, recovering from a break, that happened early in the year. So I think it was wasted. It's not wasted practice time. I still got seat time, but as we got the car turning correctly, we got the car more reliable. I was able to start being more disciplined um with my practice days, to the point where I went to practice day not for me but to help somebody else. They were like, "You really figured this out. Can you help me?" So, and within 3 sessions, we had temperatures and pressures dialed in to the point where he went out in the afternoon in the heat and put down his fastest lap time.
So looking at that, what do you think would be the single simplest change you could do to progress further from where you're at now next year?
It goes more to the discipline thing. So I need to be more formal in my track side endeavors, in my checklist. I'm one of those guys who's like, "Oh, I got it. Doop, 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 doop." I'm forcing myself to. I got a live streaming platform set up that I'm going to install this year that requires me to, it's a small commitment of time, but it forces me to be more formal because it's going to be in the middle of what my normal mental checklist is. So I'm going to formalize everything so I can know what I'm doing and make sure I'm not missing the live stream, and also not torquing my wheels,
Okay. Well, I know it comes as no surprise to you that I've been working on our goals episode.
Mm-hmm.
And being the host of the episode, I get to impose a goal upon you. And I've already come up with what your imposed goal will be, but we're going to save that. You'll find out in the future.
Oh, well, you imposed goals on me last year.
Uh-huh.
And
they were
one of them,
nightmare goals. Yes, I remember.
Yes, they were. One of them I didn't meet. So for sure.
Well, this one's not a performance goal. This is a effort goal.
Okay.
So I figured I'd be fair this year because last year I was, I don't know. I think you kicked my dog or something before that episode.
I was just there to be nice. And
I know. Then right between the teeth, boom. So I like my goals. We talk about racing. We talk about driving. We talk about everything. Got any goals for the podcast coming up?
I would like to get it to a level where I could do video.
Okay.
So
your internet's an issue still?
Yeah, I tried an internet service and it was no better than I had now. What I didn't try was to boost that service. So we're going to try that and reorder the old service. My live streaming system requires 5G. Right. So I'm literally going to set it next to one of those WeBoost setups and see if I can get that faster, and just try to get things going for video. I think I'm missing a lot of folks. I know there's a lot of folks who either listen on my website or listen on YouTube because their work blocks everything else.
Mm-hmm. Same.
So, yeah, I know the website traffic, it's decent, but I think it'll be more helpful. Also for YouTube, it closed captions automatically, so that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Just to be more inclusive of folks in general, right? So,
indeed, we were first putting ours up on YouTube when we realized we had a couple listeners and fellow drivers they actually raced with us that were deaf. So a podcast isn't a whole lot of good. So we put it up on YouTube, and I still get a kick out of some of the translations that YouTube puts up for what we're saying. So it's kind of fun, but you can eventually figure it out.
Yeah. And Apple does their own translate system, which is just as funny as YouTube. They must use the same company, but Yeah, it's a that's my biggest goal, I think.
All right. This brings us to part 3, the listener
Uh-oh.
questions.
Oh no.
I'm not going to tell you who said
All right.
what. I'm just going to. Con, would you
Mhm.
do this podcast thing again, knowing what you know now and seeing what you've had to do and everything that's transpired?
Yes, for sure. I think the positives of doing this podcast far outweigh the negatives. That it's only really the negatives are time, loss of sleep, and money,
Mhm.
all of which really I would do something else that would waste my time, lose my sleep, or burn up my money. So
Mhm.
yeah.
We had someone write in who obviously had just listened to one of our stupid episode comments before, but they asked, would you prefer a E4 opening to your game, or would you prefer a D4 opening for your game when you were playing with white? That's the face I thought. I'd
Oh
get.
no. Yeah. Okay. I don't. I'll play chess all day, but not virtually, and I don't know that ease and D. So
I figured that was the face we were going to get. We really needed to have a video podcast on that one, but that was fun. It was like click click click. Click. Oh, I know what they're doing. Anyway, all right.
yeah. Was that
So
Mario?
I am sworn to secrecy, sir.
Okay.
Any regrets on choosing your new car platform?
No. And when I have an issue, I can go to Honda and buy a part, or the parts are still cheap in the junkyard. It's amazing. So
Okay.
no.
Part 2, budget someone else's. Would that be the car you choose for Honda Challenge? Somebody else's budget.
Oh, somebody else. Well, tell me what the budget is, and I'll tell you what.
It's whatever you need, sir.
Oh, probably not
Okay.
for Honda Challenge. Any Honda based class, that's probably not what I would build with if I had any budget. But with my budget, the 8th gen was perfect for
Okay.
it.
Would you choose to do H2 again, or would you choose a different?
Oh no, I'd absolutely do H2 again.
Okay.
I will not be converted by these naysayers, and I might go to H1 one day, depends on what the group is doing in my region, but H2 is, in my opinion, the perfect balance of consumables, speed, and high revving engines.
Because
So
there's a certain contingent of your listeners who are of the single jingle variety, so they're looking to see if that was available. Would that be of interest to you?
it looks like we froze.
Oh, we're back.
The single jingle kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the single jingle kids. And the single jingle kids are now searching for a block,
Yeah,
which is impossible for them to find, right?
I have 4.
But then you have to ship it and all that jazz.
Oh, I know.
Like
That's the only problem.
where I can go to Facebook Marketplace and type in K20Z3 and find bunches of them locally within driving distance for about the same price. So
Okay. Last one related to series, I think. I haven't read this yet.
okay.
What other racing series would you be interested in getting into? Should, budget and time restrictions allow? They're removed. What looks cool?
Well, everybody's answer is going to be GLTC,
Mhm.
because they're the big bad kid on the block, and they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of personable drivers who are social media easily approachable kind of people, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's the easy answer. But I think I would probably try. I don't know. I think I would try to move some other thing would be more formal, like a TCA ride.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and try to go down that route. That's really, I'm too old to be a real pro, but I'm not too old to be an arrive and drive dude, right? Like,
Mhm. I get you.
so assuming budget was there, like I would do TCA, I think.
Okay.
It's fast enough, cheapish enough. So
Okay. I think this is perhaps someone from the Mid Atlantic region. What does your car still need? What's the biggest gap?
um oof, that is a good question. The official answer is I'll let you know when I figure it out because I'm still trying to figure it out. Um, I it's just missing a little bit of speed, and
Mhm.
I've tried to find it every way possible.
Do you know at
I've
what area of the track or what area of the turn or?
Yes, it is about half to three-quarters of the way down the usable straightaway, any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then that last quarter of the usable straightaway, the car is spinning so hard that it will slowly make up space. But from half to three-quarters of the usable straightaway, it is terrible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we know what we need to work on. Okay.
Yeah.
What about as a driver? What's your biggest gap? Braking?
Yeah. And outside of braking, um, it's really working on those secondary visual markers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I talked about it with Ross, but um,
You're talking about rain, right?
no, no, I actually don't mind that. My car loves that type of weather. So
I would think your car would be quite good at it.
yeah, it's got ABS and the tires are a little bit too big, but she's heavy
Mhm.
with ABS, so she's fine in that type of weather. But um, multiple times I have lost a position at the end of a race because I lost my marker, specifically my brake marker.
Mhm.
Um, so I need to have better reference points for
Mhm.
all, especially passing zone areas.
Yes.
Um, and sometimes it's hard. So if you ever see me walking around with a spray paint can, I didn't do it.
Agreed. There's a few courses that even though I go there hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times, I still can't find a good brake marker or a turning point or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Why won't you race an endurance race?
um, because I don't have the money to replace the car when I ball it up.
We're gonna have to talk about that, but that's fine.
I mean, but that's my biggest issue with endurance racing. I I I believe, and Peter Kraus told me after looking at my data that uh I set a what he called a really fast endurance pace.
Yep.
But I'm in a sprint race.
Yep.
So and he's like, if you can do it 20 laps through, you're fine.
Mhm.
But you know, you need to be that much faster in a sprint race. So
Yep. Okay. But that makes my goal set for you very even more appropriate. But anyway, any upcoming changes to the podcast that we can look forward to? Remember, these are listener questions.
Um, I'd like to do more Q&A sort of like this. So I haven't had one of these for a couple of months. So more with the listeners. Maybe the listener would be the interviewee.
Mm-hmm.
But also I'm really focused on getting it onto video. I feel like it needs to be there, make my life easier, make it easier for publicity, things like that. I don't know.
Just FYI, video editing sucks. It makes audio editing seem easy.
Yeah. I'm not much of an audio editor. I go, oh, this is because of the lag between me and you and the internets and the satellites and the cell phone towers or however it's getting to me. Sometimes I just clip that second of dead air, but that's about as much editing as I normally do.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, last listener question. You're almost to the end. Then we've got one thing to cover. Stopping point for the podcast is, do you have one or is it still TBD?
Oh, it's definitely TBD.
Because you said 100 when you started, so we're trying to see if we're gonna get some more out of you.
Oh, there'll be more. Because that would end right around the end of this year, I think. If otherwise, we'll keep going. I have a lot more to learn. I have a lot. I told you I have a list of guests or a list of topics that I need to find guests for. So, and there's no pleasing some people. They don't want to talk. They don't want to come on. I'm okay with people promoting their business as long as it's not like when we get into the crux of the material that they're educating people without shilling their business, without trying to sell their business the whole time. And it's like they don't even want to sell their business, Yeah.
To
people who would definitely buy their product eventually. So,
yep, for sure.
I don't get it.
No, can't make people do it. My record right now is I've got somebody who's agreed to come on and canceled 13 times.
So, oh, wow. Okay.
So you're doing okay from what I remember talking to you about.
Yeah, I'm not that bad off. And I appreciate my guests because weather canceled some baseball games and I've had to push things because the baseball games come up on podcast days. And my guests have been really flexible. I had multiple internet issues where the internet works, but the stuff isn't working. We're not recording on my normal platform today, right?
And you and I should both know how to do a podcast by now.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
sir, as one of the highlights of us starting a podcast, I do appreciate you inviting me on, and I do want to take a chance to thank you for actually talking about yourself, because if you notice, and several of our listeners have noticed, I get very uncomfortable when starting to talk about myself. So you letting me ask you questions may make some of your listeners either happy or sad, but that's okay. It's difficult to talk about your own driving, and for you to volunteer for this is pretty admirable. Well done.
I will never ever. I could be a national champion and still have room to grow. I think any driver anywhere, they win the F1 title, they still go to work the next day with some sort of drive, or they would have no purpose, right? So no matter where you are in your driving career, there's always something to work on and always something to learn. And I think as long as I have this avenue, I'll probably keep going, because I know no matter my new accolade, I'm no Ben Dawson, right? So,
well, I mean, very few are,
right. So I can't have a weekly advice column, basically a podcast where I give my advice, because generally my advice would probably be wrong at this point. I'm still new to this game. I don't have a lot of experience, and but I want to do is represent the people who don't have that, to try to ask the right questions and get everyone faster. So
I think you may have misrepresented yourself a little bit there, because your advice is right for certain people at certain times in their progression. Your advice may not be globally right and may not be applicable to an INSA champion or a NASCAR champion, but for several of your listeners who are not as far along, it may be exactly what they need to hear, or it may be exactly what they need to hear 6 months from now, or next season, or 2 seasons from now. So, Ross Bentley's standard, it depends answer is because you need to hear different things at different parts of your journey as a driver. And, we don't address upper level. You don't address it personally. We address it with our guests, but
right.
It's you've got a pretty wide listenership and at different levels, and some things are more or less applicable to some of those, and some of those aren't.
I mean, there are some things where you need to go back to your roots. So even if you are an IMSA driver, there may be something you need to hear. I'm not saying they listen. Trust me, I doubt they do. But if an episode, you're like, I didn't get anything from that, but there's somebody that could get something from it, they probably need to hear it. It will help everybody. So, yeah.
Well, speaking for your listeners, as a listener, thank you. I know how much it takes to do this, and I know how much you put into this, and I know how much you care about doing this, and I know how you make a zero from it. So, actually, we make negative from it, but that's a different story. But I wanted to make sure you knew that it was appreciated, and like I said, we listen to it every week. We often pick on you on Friday because you say it's coming on Sunday, and I'm like, I want to hear it now. But no. If it makes you feel better, every episode has gotten at least 2 laps. So we enjoy them thoroughly. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. If you're like Bill, you listen to them at least 1.5 speed, usually double. But
I found an app that does triple. So it's awesome. I get so many done. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. The Garage Heroes and Training crew, Jaime with Race FF, John and Tony with 91 Octane. Everybody's been so welcoming and willing to participate, to help, to provide advice, to, I don't know, everything. So it's been a fun journey. So we'll just keep going.
Yep. Most of us would have never met everybody else. So I do appreciate that part of the podcasting thing. So thank you again, Con. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming on and hosting this for me. Well, it's your podcast. You get to do whatever you want.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.